as you can see, more and more verticals are moving to this service era from the product era. Even historical tech companies are moving into something as a service. And so we actually have been able to move outside of just SaaS by way of that as well. And if you think about it, there's not many companies that only need to sell their product or service one time to a customer. Most of the time you want them to come back and buy it again, or they're on some sort of subscription model where they've got that recurring revenue and they get a little bit over time instead of a whole bunch of money up front like we did in the product era.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, this is Max Pittman from WriteForMe, and you're listening to another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. Where we meet the experts who are making things happen and scaling their businesses. And today we're talking about success coaching with Mr. Aaron Thompson, who is the CRO at Success Coaching. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure, Max. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Always love to talk about everything customer success and myself. So this should work just great.
Yeah, yes, that's what we're here to do, right? Like, let's do it. You have an extensive career, and you know, it looks like in the past few years, though, you've really become more of not necessarily advisor, but an influencer in the customer success space. And it looks like you've recognized company journeys are, really built around delivering success for their customers. And it's a complex world that we live in, and being able to service our customers, right? So I'm excited to dive into, who Aaron is and what you guys do at Success Hacker. But before we get into that, love it if you can kind of give, our Business Ninjas community, which is built of executives and entrepreneurs and sales and marketing leaders. Love it if you can give them a little bit of background on yourself and what brought you to where you are here today as a CRO at Success Coaching.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, thanks again for the opportunity. And hopefully those that listen get some nuggets of goodness out of the next 30 minutes or so. But yeah, my name is Aaron Thompson. I'm a customer success keynote speaker, educator, and I'm the chief revenue officer at a company called Success Coaching as well. About 8 years ago, I found this industry called customer success, and I thought I knew what it was. I was actually the head of customer success at a struggling startup, and I was able to get that job because I had worked in support for decades, always customer facing. And I came in on my first day as the head of, now tasked with fixing the churn problem. And I pulled out my laptop and I Googled, what is customer success actually? Now that I'm the head of this thing, I should probably make sure I know what it is. Lo and behold, I found an industry. There's technology platforms that service this. There's networks, there's communities, and there's a specific discipline called customer success management that I started to study. And I implemented a strategy therein at that startup and was able to take a 40% year over year churn rate down to 8%. And had a massive lift on the top line revenue for that business. And so at that point, I thought, boy, I'm onto something. I could go do this as a consultant. And so at 39 years old with a 7-year-old son, I became an entrepreneur for the first time. Not exactly how I would recommend he do it. However, it did work out. And somewhere along the way, I found the two founders of Success Coaching, my two business partners now. They were looking for another partner. I was kind of a lone wolf looking for a pack, and we've been working together ever since. And what we get to do is things exactly like this: educate communities, educate other industries outside of SaaS. It's fairly well known in the SaaS industry what customer success management is, but not so much in other industries. And so I love opportunities like this to get kind of outside of our world and speak with the broader business network and community out there. So thanks for the opportunity. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, and never too young or old to start your own company and do your own thing, which I love. And I'd love it if you could kind of dive into, like you mentioned, like SaaS is an industry that's very it's definitely like companies that are in SaaS have account managers, customer success managers, maybe even like renewal specialists, and they all have kind of different roles within like the customer journey. And what industries are you speaking to? Like, what other industries out there besides B2B tech and B2B SaaS, are ones that are starting to adopt more customer success managers to help, in client churn that may be affecting, their bottom line?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally born at Salesforce in the SaaS world, what really predicated the need for customer success management, and I'll talk about the difference between CSM versus account management or customer service. Come back to that in a second. But what created the need for it was the shift in the economy from the product era to the service era. When we stopped selling physical products, whether that was on-premise software or anything else that we see now. Like I always like to use the analogy of watching a movie at home. In the product area, you had to get your hands on a DVD. And then eventually the streaming services showed up and it decimated the entire industry because it's the same outcome, watch the movie at home, but a vastly improved customer experience. And that's what it comes down to. The definition of customer success, any customer at any company, is that their desired outcome. So that's going to be a pain to relieve or a gain to achieve, right? One or the other. Make me bigger, faster, stronger, or I've got some regulatory thing I got to be in compliance with. But whatever it is, I've got an outcome I'm looking to achieve, and then give it to me or help me achieve that through my desired experience. So my desired outcome plus my desired experience equals my definition of success. And that's what really created the need for it back early in the industry. But as you can see, more and more verticals are moving to this service era from the product era. Even historical tech companies are moving into something as a service. And so we actually have been able to move outside of just SaaS by way of that as well. And if you think about it, there's not many companies that only need to sell their product or service one time to a customer. Most of the time you want them to come back and buy it again, or they're on some sort of subscription model where they've got that recurring revenue and they get a little bit over time instead of a whole bunch of money up front like we did in the product era. And so that's sort of where it came from. And as more and more verticals have moved into that, once I discovered that macro level shift in the economy from the product era to the service era was really what created the need for this thing. That's when I jumped in head first. And I was like, I'm going to study this. I'm going to make as big a splash in this world as I can, because I think it's only going to get bigger. And lo and behold, now 7-8 years later, it certainly has. And so we get to work with other types of companies. Health insurance, even if you think about it, is as a service, right? It's just a policy that says if something happens, they're going to pay this or pay that. They have customer success managers now. And any business that has a repeatable revenue model, or at the very least needs their customer to come back again, they need this practice of customer success management. Mm-hmm. Now, how it's different than account management is basically my role as a CSM, customer success manager, is for you to achieve your definition of success. So that means I'm going to have to define it with you. I'm then going to help you help to deliver that. There's 3 Ds: define, deliver, and demonstrate. And then I'm going to demonstrate it to you. And that's my job. My allegiance is with you and achieving your definition of success in terms of desired outcomes and desired experience, versus an account manager where my allegiance is with managing the account. You can look at the name and see the difference. And in that management of the account, if the person I'm working with isn't helping me expand that account by way of introductions or additional product demos or whatever, I've got a little carte blanche to go above them, around them, whatever I got to do, because my job is to grow the account. Whereas as the CSM, my job is to help them be successful. And then that leads to, sometimes when it's in their best interest and they have a legit pain point, it can lead to expansion. But it's really predicated on just making sure that we define what success is to you, we deliver that to you, and then we demonstrate it so you have no shadow of a doubt that you received it. Yeah. Customer success at its core is proactive and strategic. Customer service and customer support are reactive and tactical. Those functions roll up as part of success, but they in their own right aren't success per se. Yeah. Fixing the bug or putting out the fire, that gets you back to the water line. That doesn't add value to me. That just gets you back to where you started. Much like fixing the car that broke down on me over the weekend that we were just talking about. Once that thing's fixed, I'm not going to feel like I got any better value out of the car. I'm just going to be back to where I was. So that's kind of the difference between AMs and CSMs, and then typical support service versus customer success.
Yeah, thanks for going into the details around like the differences there. And honestly, at former companies, it's like, like, why do we have just this one CSM focused on maybe doing a little bit of reactiveness and putting out of fires and a little bit of selling as well? So, or do you see a lot of companies that, you guys are coaching or helping out with, like, where there's a lot of like, wearing a lot of hats for that CSM role, or maybe doing multiple roles just within one? And do you guys get them to focus on, hey, like, this is actually, the CSM role should be focused here, right? Like, because I think from my prior experience, like the CSM like was doing everything, and there's a lot of burnout even with them in their roles, because they're operationally speaking doing a lot more than probably what their role entailed them for. So like, what do you typically, coaching companies on when you're talking to them about that specific role?
Yeah, and we see that every time. And that's a perfect time to bring us in. So at Success Coaching, we invented officially accredited certifications in the discipline of customer success management. So we certify people, just like you'd be a certified Scrum Master or Salesforce administrator, you can become a certified customer success manager. Or if I'm a leader, I can put my whole team through it. And now they're all singing from the same sheet of music and practicing industry or using industry best practices, proven practices. And so that's our business model. Is when an organization, they all start out this way. There's this maturation of a customer success org that starts as a hero, where you are reactive and you're putting out the fires and you're just doing everything you can to ensure those customers stay. Like, that's kind of the beginning, like the building blocks. And everybody wants to get to the other end of the spectrum of operationalized, where they've got specific moments of truth identified, the customer journey is identified, success planning, business reviews, onboarding's all dialed in. And you know exactly what you're going to do. You've got your engagement model mapping your level of effort over time and all of these different things. But to get from point A to point B or point Z, you got to go through strategic. And that's where bringing in an organization like Success Coaching really helps. Because what we do is we bring in those industry best practices, practical tools to use. It's not just soft skills, but to your question about soft skills, we also have, like, in our level 1 certification, for example, one of the topics is called applying a consultative approach. And it's all about teaching these CSMs how to ask open-ended questions, perform active listening, and effective storytelling. So that's a communication style with your customer that'll allow you to get to that second and third level of maybe what they're asking for, to be able to apply a more appropriate set of solutions to fix that problem. A perfect example, I had a client years ago, the data extract thing was broken, where you pull out all the usage data to run a report. I just immediately, 20 plus years of support experience, you don't necessarily communicate consultatively. It's like question, answer, problem, solution, right? And you're just banging down the support queue. And so they come and say it's broken. I immediately go into like firefighting mode, and I come back and I triumphantly a week later say, okay, it's fixed. Oh, by the way, what kind of report are you looking to run? Long story short, we could have written them a custom script in a minute or two, gotten them that piece of the data. Had I asked that question up front, been consultative with what kind of a pragmatic approach we were going to take, as opposed to just, it's broken, I got to fix it. And you have these fire drill moments in your organization. Would have been better for the client, would have been better for us. That's one example of kind of soft skills of how CSMs can mature out of this reactive support mode, but they have to have the right training and education on how to do this, especially if you're like me and you come from decades of support experience. That's just not a natural way to communicate for me.
Mm-hmm. I could see that also translating really well into like sales roles and soft selling, right? Like taking
100%.
the extra time to listen, right? And be like, hey, tell me more about that, right? Just, that's like my favorite question to ask. Like, hey, I heard this, like, what does that mean? Like, tell me more about that. I'm the dumb sales guy. Like, help me understand, like, what do you mean by that? And let's break that down. Let's, and try to take that a level deeper, and, trying to, understand those pains and challenges versus like jumping right into them or just glossing over them is something that even me as a sales guy, that's been doing this for 5 or 7 years still needs training on doing. And, and so I could see how a lot of what you guys are doing, in your, in your coaching, right, is to help them and selling, right, and storytelling is a big piece of it as well. And so those are things I think apply to customer service, customer success, and also into sales.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the people, to your point, the people who come from a sales background are naturally more consultative because consultative selling's been around for a while. But consultative customer relationship management in the post-sale world depends on the organization and how mature it is, but that can be a very new concept to people. I forgot to mention the logo in case anybody's watching this and not just listening on the podcast, but that's a unicorn. We can all be unicorns if we get the right tools, and that's what we aim to do at Success Coaching is give our clients the right tools to be exactly that.
I appreciate you calling that out because I wanted to. I didn't know when. Thanks for doing that.
I should have led with that. I always, if I don't, that's all people are thinking the whole time I'm talking.
Yeah, everyone who's listening, go check out our YouTube with Aaron, and you'll see what we're talking about. But yeah, I appreciate it. And it sounded like a little bit from what I'm hearing, Aaron, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong here, but you know, the secret sauce like that you guys provide at Success Coaching is obviously teaching best practices and providing tools to use, but more or less providing like the actual accreditation and credentials that, you know, potentially like future employers might be looking for them to have, or, you know, I'm not sure what other type of training is out there, but would you say that's like part of what's maybe separating you guys? I don't know if there's what the competition looks like in your space other than other consultants. So I'd love to make sure I understand, and for you to like share with our audience, like what is that secret sauce you guys provide?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a ton of sales training out there. There's not a ton of customer success specific niche training, but there are some other copycats. And we have first mover advantage because we were the first to market with this type of concept. All of the curriculum is built by myself and my two business partners, and we've all been heads of customer success at startups all the way up to Fortune 500s. And we've all done decades of training and instructional design in our background. And so you put all that together, and it's not just what you're teaching, it's how you're teaching it, both live and instructor led, albeit virtual or in person, as well as how we build it for our self-paced platform online. Add to that we went through the arduous process of actually gaining official accreditation through an organization called CPD. So our graduates actually receive CE credits, which for large organizations, a lot of times that's a big deal. They need to turn in some sort of accredited continuing education credit to their HR team or their manager each year. And we fit in with that. We're also taught at the university level. At a few universities, they use our curriculum, like the University of San Francisco. We help them build a customer success track as part of their MBA program. And so they have this very innovative MBA professor there, VJ, great buddy of mine. And he wanted to, what was happening was all of his MBA students were graduating and going and becoming a customer success manager at tech companies, and he didn't know what it was. And so he started looking around and trying to find some people to talk to about it. And we met, cold call on LinkedIn. And a few years later, there we were at USF helping him build that out. And, you know, now we sit on the board there at USF as well. So the secret sauce is real world proven experience built into not only soft skill philosophy, but tactical, pragmatic tools to use so that our graduates can just immediately start positively affecting their experiences with their clients. And then that then shows itself in all of these other ways, the accreditation, the university level, et cetera.
I love it. That's great. I mean, for everyone that's listening, that is, you know, thinking about, okay, what is something like that I want to achieve or do? Maybe if I'm in a sales role or account manager role, like it sounds like Success Coaching may be a place to start and think about how they can potentially think about their own next career move to get the accreditation potentially needed, or, you know, training needed to be able to apply for some of those potential roles that they may be looking to do.
Yeah, if they're interested to kind of go explore, go to LinkedIn and just search for CCSM, stands for Certified Customer Success Manager, and you'll find the tens of thousands, we're over 20,000 now graduates globally. You'll find in your network, I'm sure, certain people who have gone through our certifications, and you'll see the badge there in that certification and education section on LinkedIn, just like you would a certified Salesforce admin, or, you know, you name it.
Certified financial planners, right?
Churn, you name it. Everybody's got a certification. Why not us too, right?
Yeah, I love it. They don't do anything like that for sales. Yes, maybe an MBA, I guess.
I think, yeah, I think what shows a certified salesperson is who hits their quota and who hits their number and who doesn't. I think that's what means if you're certified or not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, when you guys look, you're the CRO. You guys obviously are trying to grow and scale your own organization. Like, what are some of the things that you're focused on, or other challenges facing the business today? Is it trying to get into more events and speaking arrangements? Is it marketing yourself? Is it we're trying to grow and scale our own teams? Like, I'm just kind of curious.
That's a good question. Yeah, our business has gone through a few iterations over the 8 or so years that we've been around. We moved from a primarily traditional training, professional service kind of business where we were doing live trainings. Then we built an online platform for self-access, self-paced learning. That's obviously much more scalable, allows us to sell it at a much lower price point, thus opening up our total addressable market. And yet we were still out doing live events. And then COVID forced us to exercise the muscle of virtual instructor led. And so that was kind of the next iteration. And during COVID and quarantine, there was leaders all around the world looking for ways to keep their employees engaged and even leverage that time at home now for them to level up and do some education and training. And so we just had this influx of inbound, and it was just almost like you're an order taker just to try to keep up with all the demand that was coming in during those first couple of years of quarantine and the work from home, remote work, et cetera, even into the hybrid model that we have now. And then us, like many in the down economy that we're now experiencing, that inbound funnel started to dry up. And so now that's forced us to really execute on the outbound side. And we're really maturing our outbound processes through omni-channel, and WriteForMe being an amazing way for us to possibly do that as well, content, et cetera, so that we can just get out there with, the brand's pretty recognizable. We're pretty well known in the customer success community, but getting outside of that, taking the customer success best practices outside of the typical SaaS total addressable market, and then really making sure that everybody knows that this is something that they can invest in for their teams and for themselves to go ahead and become a certified CSM. And so that's where we're at right now, and we're getting that engine up and running. It's starting to show the results of that motion in our business. But we were just kind of spoiled before and didn't need to do a whole lot of that brand awareness, demand generation, because there was just so much coming in. We've done a really good job of kind of owning the keywords and the SEO, but that means somebody's got to be going and actively looking. And now in the world where there's less people doing that proactively, we need to be getting out in front of them, and we're starting to do a really good job with that as well.
Very cool. Yeah, that's great to hear. You guys are doing a good job of that. And as outbound matures, so will your message and the value you guys are trying to provide. I always think it's best to keep things very, very easy and light for someone to understand who you are and what you do and why you're reaching out. The easiest way to do that is by identifying problems they may be experiencing, relating to it, agitating it, and telling them we have a solution that you guys could potentially be, if you're interested in, like, we'd love to talk to you about it, right? And so I'm assuming you're going after CSM, managers, directors of customer success, owners, probably CROs like yourself, right? So each of those individuals probably should get a different message that's relatable to them as well. So as you guys mature through outbound, I'm sure that message will, as you guys continue to drill in on the personas you guys are trying to have conversations with.
Yeah, absolutely. And they change over time, right? And then, as you move into different verticals and industries, you've got different pains. What we really try to lead with, both in social, and I'm very active and noisy on LinkedIn and do a lot of ego stroking for myself to get out there and say a whole bunch of stuff. So there's that. But then what we want to lead with, from like email campaigns and even LinkedIn connections and stuff, we don't really sell on LinkedIn. It's just a matter of, if I can get people to connect to me, I'm going to end up on their feed. And hopefully I say something intelligent enough on a camera sometime that they think I'm going to go look at that weird looking donkey plunger company and see what that dude was talking about. But on the email side, we really try to lead with just value and just helping sales kinds of concepts. So We've got a complete customer success manager competency model. It took us years to compile this data, over 2 years to be exact. And it outlines the 5 disciplines and 18 key skills of a junior, senior, and leader in customer success, so they can start identifying skill gaps and hopefully be able to fill those in. We've got a buyer's guide that helps people make decisions on if they're ready to invest in customer success training. We literally created the category on G2 Crowd for customer success training because we're just trying to always help people. And then as we do that, inevitably that will hopefully come back around, and they'll help us as well, if you will. But our mission being simply to help people get into and thrive within the customer success industry. And we do that in a myriad of different ways, and many of which is, there's no direct ROI correlation. We're just there to try to help them be successful in their own right.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Everyone's kind of their own unique career path. And some of us probably didn't even think of what a success manager is, but they're here in these roles, and the ways they can get better is by helping their customers succeed. And also at the same time, that helps their own company succeed too. So there's people at all stages of their journey. So are you guys helping people with placement? Do you guys help people like with recruiting? Is that part of like the services you provide, or I'm just kind of curious where you guys start and finish?
That's a really good question. Yeah, we have partners that we leverage for that. Back in the day, we were doing some recruiting services, but we are at our core a training and education company, and that's on the middle of our fairway. And so for the services like resume prep, translation, I've been in customer support for a decade. How can I translate my experience into customer success terminology? We've got partners who help with that, who help with placement, B2B recruiting, kind of a typical recruiting arrangement as well, where we have partners with databases of thousands of candidates that they can help fill any need that any hiring manager or HR department might be looking to fill. And then where we come in is helping those people be successful, helping them be good at their jobs. And that's where we have 5 levels of certification plus countless extracurricular courses. And so no matter where you are in your career, if you're just looking to get into customer success, level 1 will help you do that. I wish I'd have had it when I was the head of CS and I was Googling, what is this thing? And then if you've been in the industry for years and you're much more experienced, all the way up to level 5, and it just gets more and more sophisticated and strategic as you move through the levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it makes sense, right? Customer-driven growth principles at scale to educate yourself on. Would you say like the biggest, I know you talked earlier about, your own experience and, fixing churn, at the current company that you started your director of customer success at, right? Would you say like the easiest place, I guess, to start with like a CSM is like, hey, like, it's always going to be making, I'm going to quickly pause. I'm trying to figure out how I can loop in like your past story to like some customer examples. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about like some of the companies that you guys have partnered with, maybe some of the data. Like, is that something you'd be open to sharing, I guess, or could share?
The data relative to what exactly?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just trying to figure out because I want to like tie in what brought you to starting success or being a part of success coaching and hackers to like real world problems. I think.
So we can look at the churn rate as kind of the first one, but then you've got 5 revenue streams that every business has, and I can launch into that and talk about sort of the table stakes of a just starting out, I don't want to use the term immature CS organization where you just focus on retention, and then what it looks like once you've matured up into expansion of cross-sell, upsell, and then the holy grail of advocacy revenue and generating the referral revenue that way.
And those are part of like kind of what you were just talking about, right? They're like kind of the 5 levels of this.
They're part of, those are the 5 revenue streams, and 4 of which customer success, post-sale management applies to. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Why you guys would develop these different programs. Like, can you dive into really quickly, like those levels, and maybe what those levels are solving for specifically, maybe with some real world business examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, each level gets more and more sophisticated. So the more mature of an organization or an individual contributor, the higher levels are going to apply. That foundational level, really what brings people to us for that level one is they have to roll out a CS organization. They've either been tasked with, building this thing from scratch, or they have some support folks that they're transitioning over. Old account managers are now going to be CSMs, and they need to understand what is customer success. And from a business component, typically what they're looking at is retention numbers, is why they're looking to build that out. But every business has 5 revenue streams. You've got your net new coming through the top of the funnel to the bottom, then you've got your retention. Then we've got expansion by way of cross-sell, and you've got expansion by way of upsell. And then finally, you've got the holy grail of those referral dollars. We call them customer success qualified leads, where we're generating net new business from the customer asset outwards, as opposed to just continuing to fill the top of the funnel like we've done in the past. We've got MQLs, they've been around forever. SQLs, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified lead. Now we have customer success qualified leads that allow us to track our impact on the overall revenue, typically in a recurring revenue model, a subscription business where we have so much of the revenue post-sale. And so from a business challenge perspective, it usually starts with fix the churn problem, just like I was tasked with. But as they mature, it moves into grow the accounts while remaining the trusted advisor. Well, let's find some upsells, for example. Let's paying more for the same thing, right? Whether we do a rate hike and you don't churn as a customer, or you buy more of the same stuff, more seats, more consumption, more whatever you do, but we're making more money from the same initial sale that we originally had. Then you got your cross sell, where now you're looking at selling something new that either complements it. And then finally, again, you've got that referral revenue. If I can make an advocate out of any of your listeners out there, if they can say, you know what, they got a funny looking logo, but what that guy said made a lot of sense, they then go to our website. I've now generated a new lead into my funnel by way of customer driven growth. And that's what the most mature businesses are looking to solve when they think of customer success management and training and education. It's going to be anywhere from we need to increase the retention numbers all the way up to I want to genuinely generate customer driven growth. Those CSQLs are so much cheaper than MQLs and SQLs. It has just an immediate profound impact on the business because you don't have to market to them, do demand gen awareness, sales cycles higher, conversion rates are higher, everybody wins. And that's kind of the most mature and sophisticated CS motion in a business is I want to generate as many of those leads as I can so that we can be more efficient with our customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, such a lower CAC on those in comparison to marketing qualified leads. And through outbound too, it's very expensive to do outbound. Those are very expensive meetings that people are hopping onto when we get someone to reply, right? So I can see why that's the holy grail in generating the revenue, generating additional revenue streams is that customer driven growth. As you guys are looking at the rest of this year, I mean, it's crazy. We're already in Q2, moving into Q3 next month. If your fiscal year begins Jan 1, is there anything that you guys are working towards as a business that you want to be celebrating, a year from now? What's top of mind as we're running into the second half of the year? And is there anything you guys talked about at the beginning of the year that is maybe a metric or goal you guys are working towards?
Yeah, we, like every company, set out and create goals for the year. As the chief revenue officer, I'm consistently just always looking at our numbers and trying to figure out not only are we just hitting the numbers that we had projected in our game planning behind, but where's the revenue coming from? And so really honing in on that is where we're getting much more sophisticated now and realizing of the revenue that we're making, how much is coming from net new, how much is coming from cross-sell, upsell, and then again, that advocacy referral revenue is where we want to focus our business. So a year from now, I think what we'll be celebrating is not necessarily hitting the number that we all put out in January of 23. We just did not expect this kind of a slowdown in the global economy. But what we will be celebrating is that we have been able to generate so much of our revenue from our current customer asset outwards, as opposed to just filling that MQL, SQL funnel. That's because of that acquisition cost being so much less expensive. We know we're immediately more profitable on those customers. And frankly, what it tells us is if our customers are advocates for us and they're generating net new leads for us, we're doing it right. We're doing what we are preaching and what we teach them to do. And without a shadow of a doubt, they're achieving their definition of success if they're willing to go out and be an advocate for us. And so that's in a year, that's what we'll be looking at, is that hard CSQL number increasing across our overall revenue picture for like right now. And there's not a whole lot more to go. I mean, the majority of our revenue, about 70%, comes from our current customer base, either through the expansion, advocate, you name it. Only about 30% is completely net new, whether that's outbound or inbound. You know, I can slice those numbers up as well, but that's a pretty big chunk. And what that shows us is our business is practicing what we're preaching. We're drinking our own champagne, if you will, and it's effective. It works. We know it works because that's how we grow our business.
Yep.
And so that's what hopefully we'll be celebrating is just more continued growth that way.
I love that you didn't use eat our own dog food. Thank you for but it's that best in class story, right? It's the success coaching on success coaching success. Funny way of saying it, but it's true, right? Like you like being where you guys are, 70% of the growth of the business and revenue is contributed to your customer success qualified opportunities. That's what you're trying to derive and have your clients and customers you guys are partnering up with get towards. And so hearing you say that this is, you know, leading our own growth today and we're expanding in other channels, like it's, you guys truly are drinking your own champagne.
and think about it from my perspective, right? We've got a unique product. Nobody pays for the same education twice. Right. And so we don't even look at our business as like recurring revenue. We look at it as anniversaries. We don't have a renewal event. We have an anniversary. Nobody's going to pay for level 1 this year and then again next year. I mean, some people do, but very, very few. Most would move on to level 2 and level 3, and then the extracurriculars all the way up to level 5, et cetera. And so that's how we look at it. And that's a tricky thing, training and education versus like some kind of a SaaS product where I am going to keep paying for it because I need, you know, like I'm Salesforce or whatever, right? You got to keep using it. I'm in there, I've got my CRM plugged in and it is what it is. Training and education is a completely different animal. So I'm very proud as our CRO to be able to look at that and say, even under those extreme circumstances, the vast majority of our revenue comes from our current customers, either expanding, moving on to the, you know, upgrading from level 1 to level 2 or whatever. And then again, that advocacy, that holy grail. We love our customers and we love that they are so ecstatic about their experience on our platform that they're willing to go out and speak positively about us.
I love it. Yeah. And as you guys are continuing to grow this year, and you are a very busy guy, Aaron, you're doing, as you mentioned at the outset of the call, you do a lot of speaking and you know, doing keynotes as well. And I love it as we wrap things up here, you know, tell the audience, you know, where can they find Aaron? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you? Where else are you going to be, you know, speaking and coaching at the rest of this year?
Yeah, I'd love to find anyone. You can probably find me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm pretty noisy. I also have a personal website called redslacks.com. I always wear red slacks when I do public speaking. And so anything that I do publicly is out there. All of my social media channels, you can connect with me on there. And then all of our content, we've got tons of free resources on successcoaching.co. Still trying to wrestle away the .com from someone else, but .co. And you can find us there, reach out to us, be happy to chat with anybody about what customer success is, and then obviously certainly how we can help enable and train your team.
Perfect. Yes, everyone go reach out to Aaron. Go check out him on socials. Again, this is Aaron Thompson at Success Coaching. Also has his own personal website. We'll include the link in the description as well for people who might have missed that. Aaron, thank you so much for being here, part of the Business Ninjas podcast today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Max. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here, and I definitely enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot about you. I've learned a lot about customer success, and also like what value it provides to organizations. In addition, obviously putting out fires, there's a lot more to it, and they can be revenue generators for the organizations that they're working within. And there's a lot that goes into it. And so everyone who is interested in learning more about how they can level up their CSM teams or bring on CSM teams, definitely reach out to Aaron at Success Coaching. So everyone who is listening, thank you so much for checking this out, and appreciate you being here. And that wraps up another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. Have a great rest of the day.